This is episode number 10 of Crazy Damn Canadians.
Episode number 10. We are officially in double digits, and we are sitting here with two exceptionally special guests, Warren and Chantelle. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today. And maybe we can just start with introducing the two of you, starting with you, Chantelle.
Yeah, sure. I'm Chantelle Grafton, longtime resident of Prince George, and here with Warren.
Yep, my name is Warren Grafton. I'm born and raised PG out at the Nuka Lake, Kelly Road Secondary students. No, not me. She's a College Heights girl, but...
Oh my goodness, a College Heights kid and a Kelly Road kid got together?
Yeah, you guys want to fight?
Ooh.
That sounds like a past pit party at Duke's Trail disagreement right there.
Yeah.
But Dave, we really are lucky to have Warren and Chantelle here, and we really want to get into this interview, but you've known each other from the past, correct?
Yeah, I don't know how many years ago it was now. It all becomes a blur, but I was actually the DJ at their wedding. So that's how I met them.
Yeah, we had to tell you to turn it down a couple of times, I think, because we were at my parents' place on the lake trying to watch you freeze to death over in the corner, an outside wedding. But yeah, it was a good time.
That was a great wedding, and then I ended up doing some of their friends' weddings too, and just the funnest group of human beings. And I know that because very few times in my DJ career did I feel so emotionally impacted by a group of people and how they were acting. And I remember it was a bunch of cowboys, but they were having so much fun dancing and just the energy that I actually took video of it because I needed to store it and post it. So that's one of the videos I posted in 2014 to Hell Yeah Prince George. I just remembered the date. And I posted it saying, "You're not going to believe this wedding." And it was when they were all singing the Backstreet Boys to one another. I Want It That Way.
11 p.m. song, yeah.
Yeah, and everybody in the entire wedding stood around you guys and sang you "I Want It That Way," and that video will be on the Crazy Damn Canadians page as a link. It was a super cool moment.
And I'm excited to see that video, and I'm also excited to get into the conversation that we're here for today. And you were married in 2014, and maybe we can fast forward a few years to what happened after that changed your life forever.
Yeah, so I can't believe it's already coming up on a year and a half, but back in 2019, we were doing our most favorite thing and going mountain biking in Valemount for the Valemount Beer Festival was that weekend, which was our new annual thing. And took a jump on my bike, did not land it, and I broke my neck, C1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, so right away, because some people are listening to a podcast, of course, Chantelle is paralyzed from the neck down. I would like to know really quickly, so now people understand this podcast is going to be about inspirational people and obviously overcoming adversity, because your story is pretty fascinating. Can you tell us, though, how did you guys even meet? Like, how are you guys a couple, really quickly?
Yeah. So that was back in, I think, 2008 or 2009 at UNBC, and I was just starting university, and Warren was just wrapping it up, but we actually met at a jiu-jitsu club. So it was at the Northern Sports Center. We both were there, and I was there kind of helping my friend who was pursuing a young male in the group, and I ended up really loving it, and then I met Warren. And we trained together for a year and then started dating soon after that. He had plans to peace out to go to Victoria and go to school, but I made him hang around on his cell phone, and then we've been together ever since.
What do you guys do for work? Like, what was your occupation before you had this accident? Is it the same now?
It is actually the same now. I'm really fortunate. I work for the province of BC, and I work in the water management group there. So I deal specifically with flood and drought management. And I'd been there in that job for a couple of years doing something different, but I just kind of switched positions, and I remember complaining that there's not enough field work and it's mostly at my desk. But now I'm incredibly grateful because I can do 95% of my job, especially with the equipment that's available today. And they were an amazing employer, got me everything I needed and supported me the entire time.
That's pretty exceptional. I've talked to a few people who've had accidents, and I actually don't know of anyone that not only went through what you went through and the severity of it, but actually kept working in the same location. So I guess, do you express your appreciation with them, and do you think that that's where you'll stay, or do you have future goals to do something different too?
Well, my supervisor will be listening to this.
Tell us about your boss. How do you really feel?
He's pretty great. No, my group is awesome. Like, we're all really close, and I love the work. I love everything about it. And yeah, I mean, like, the dedication they've showed me has definitely solidified my loyalty to my working group.
And that was one of the first things that Chantelle said she wanted to do post-injury, when we were still kind of getting the worst of the diagnoses that you can't get. She said that she wanted to go back to work. She was just kind of started a new position, and it gave her a lot of value, right? And I think that'd be the hardest part about post-injury, is just that loss of value in your life and being able to contribute to something. So for her, it was that was the goal, was everything we could do to get her back to work.
Yeah.
One of the messages I would hope people pick up out of this is, if you're fully abled and not doing what you want, and then you see someone like Chantelle, who had you can't get a worse injury, really, than what you've had. You have to consciously breathe. And in the olden days, that it wouldn't have happened. You wouldn't have been able to survive through the hospital. You consciously breathe and then make yourself talk. It's not automatic anymore, correct?
No. Yeah, breathing's definitely a lot of work. I think, you take it for granted in life in general, but yeah, it doesn't deter me from doing what I love to do. It's just I'm more dedicated to the moment, I think. So there's not much that I'm going to spend time doing that I don't want to do anymore, and I definitely I get a lot of value out of my job, and I know that I'm there out of a choice. I don't have to be there. I have long-term disability, so it's fine. I do it because I like to do it.
Do any of your friends ever complain in front of you about how hard their life is?
Constantly.
Ever?
But I encourage that, because one thing, like, it's all perspective, and everybody's life is different, and I don't want anyone to feel that they can't complain to me. Like, I remember Warren was really ashamed in the ICU that he started complaining his neck hurt because he was always bending over looking at me. He's like, this feels terrible to tell you about that. I'm like, well,
my neck's really sore.
Yeah.
Ooh, awkward. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's priceless.
Yeah.
To tell you the truth, if anything, it kind of changed our perspective on kind of people's woes. We really learned that it is all part of perspective, especially when we were in rehab. We almost started to notice that the quadriplegics, like people who are paralyzed at a very high level, almost seem to have maybe even a better attitude than just paraplegics who, I mean, in our opinion, like, if you're a paraplegic these days, there's the technology and the equipment and everything like that. There's so much that you can do. There's so many cool mountain bikes. There's so many awesome things like that. But it all just kind of, it was your perspective. You just felt like you lost so much losing your legs, and then the quadriplegics were just almost happy to be alive at that point, kind of thing. So you just really started to be conscious of, it's all perspective of what you've lost and what you've gained. And so
I think that if we were going to capture any quote from this, I guarantee that's going to be it. Like, I just got shivers and goosebumps through that section.
Yeah. And just listening to what you just had to say, Chantelle and Warren, the number one word that pops to mind for me is gratitude, because I feel it's something that a lot of people could exercise and use a lot more of in their life. And sometimes it's just reflecting on everything you have to be grateful for. And it could be little things that just add up. And we've recently been dealing with some social media drama that has sparked some arguments amongst community members. And we kind of, at the end of the day, we do have so much to be grateful for, whether it's as a community or as an individual living in the north of the most beautiful province and the most beautiful country in the world. So I just want to ask a quick question here, because I know the two of you have an incredible athletic background. And I remember years ago seeing you both at the Northern Sports Center, and you were always involved in whether it was training for karate or just having a good workout. But I'm just curious, when did you get into mountain biking?
I kind of grew up in the sport. I grew up ranching just northwest of town, and we were always building bike jumps, what everybody kind of does when you're got nowhere to be in town, I suppose. But so I just started mountain biking with my friends, lugging up the hill at the Hart Dump into Pederney. And then when Chantelle and I we weren't even married yet, but as our graduation present from UMBC, I got her a mountain bike, because might as well, if I'm going on these trips, she might as well be coming with me. And she fell for it pretty hard.
Yeah, it was always something like people always admire. People have a passion or a hobby that they'll even spend time watching YouTube videos on it or trying to get better and pursuing it. And I've never had that before. But then once I started biking, like it just, originally it was about going out with Warren, going out with friends, but I found later it was always just me and the dog. And we just loved going out, loved everything about it. And the people that are involved in it, like just really down to earth. And we have some amazing parks, like Pederney and Otway are spectacular. I think we should be really grateful for having that so close.
Yeah, and all the little neighborhoods up north, like Burns Lake. All of a sudden you're going for camping trips to Burns Lake to go biking, and Smithers and Valemount, and we'll have to make sure we mention Valemount either, because they have a special place in our heart for sure, but especially after the accident. But I think she was mountain biking even more than I was in the end there. And we were gone almost every weekend on these little camping trips. We got an old diesel truck and threw a camper on the back of it and started lugging around that way. So that was our happy place for sure.
Do you mind telling us about the accident?
Yeah, so I have no problem talking about it. It doesn't bother me, but it was on my favorite trail. It's a trail called Moby Dick on, within the Valemount Biking Park. And we were there for they do a bike day and then they do a beer festival, which has been just spectacular in previous years. So, I was biking with a group of my friends, and I've always wanted to try and stay close with people, because I've always had in the back of my head that if something ever happened, you don't have long to respond. I've done first aid on multiple broken collarbones in the biking world now. And there was like this little drop, and it had a bend going in it. And I tried it twice and kept landing front heavy, but I thought to myself, you don't get better unless you try. So I was going to ride past it. At the very last second, I changed my mind, and I went into it, and I went into it too slow. So I landed on my head. I just remember spinning and waiting for everything to stop. My bike ended up in the bush somewhere. And then I got up, and I thought I had the wind knocked out of me. Then I realized I couldn't breathe. And that's when my friend Sandy pulled up and realized something was wrong. And I managed to tell her I couldn't breathe, and then I passed out. And my understanding of the story is herself and a couple of my friends. I was lucky in the group because we had some health professionals, and actually a medical student was with us, and they did CPR on me, I think for 11 minutes until paramedics showed up. And then they carted me off the hill, brought me down, and then I was helicoptered to Edmonton. And I remember waking up a couple times, actually woke up in the helicopter, and I was really choked that these guys were going to make me late for the beer fest. And I was like, you don't understand, I have places to be. And the next thing I know, I was in Edmonton.
So how were you breathing though? So you have to consciously breathe now. Did the injury get worse as time went by and you lost ability? You said you got up.
Yeah, well, I don't know the specifics on why these things work, but there's a lot of swelling when you have a spinal cord injury. So the damage hadn't quite gotten there yet. So I was able to get up and I was able to move, and then you get peripheral bleeding. I severed an artery you have two arteries that go into your brain, and I severed one of those. So I think that's what caused some of the damage.
Yeah, so her injury level is C1, 2, and 3. So at C1, C1 was cracked, C2 broke and spread, and then C3 just mangled gnar mess of
It's a
hamburger
cool
now.
X-ray.
It's a very cool X-ray.
It is.
Yeah, we like showing it.
So
You're
this
going to
is
have to send us a picture of that.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
posting it on the page with the podcast.
So in terms of breathing, they say C4, 5, and 6, or C3, 4, and 5 keep the diaphragm alive. So at that level is where your innervation is to your diaphragm for breathing. So yeah, I don't know the exact, and we haven't really all gotten together, everybody that was right there, and kind of talked about it, which I don't know, maybe we should one day. But long story short, there were a couple of, one, it wasn't a small drop. It's a good 3 or 4 footer with some speed, so you got to give yourself some credit there. And then the one big thing that always lined up is Chantelle is kind of the least experienced rider of our group. So typically,
Whoa, now.
typically she rides at the back of the line. So, but this time she pulled ahead of a couple of friends, and I think that's what made the whole thing possible. Is
Everything
that,
lined up really well.
yeah,
I
they
was
came.
fortunate on many circumstances.
So they came up on her, whereas she would have been the caboose. And it's not uncommon for somebody to blow a tube or a tire or something, and you just kind of sit at the bottom and go, well, I guess we should go and check on them. By then it would have been too late, right?
Yeah.
So if I have one pitch to make, do your first aid training and think about your spacing and your group riding.
That is great advice, Chantelle. I feel like any individual would benefit from first aid training at whatever level, right? It's always going to be an asset in your skill set and something that might come in handy to save a life one day. So you broke your neck at the highest level possible, also known as the hangman's fracture?
That's right.
Okay, and I just want to spend a second here talking about the friends that you were with at the time, and what a miracle that you were with friends that actually knew what to do in that kind of situation, and in a lot of ways they are angels, that they were able to be there for you at this time.
Yeah. No, one of my friends was a search and rescue member for many years, so he's attended accidents before. He was first on, and same with a medical student, and my other friend was a physio, so just had the really right group of people. The rest, shut down the trail, directed people. They were calm, collected, and just really grateful for them all the time. It's my number one goal, I think, is to try and return some kind of kindness to these people. I don't know if it's possible, but
So far it's just been in beer.
yeah, we give them a lot of beer.
And I find it hilarious that when you're being airlifted to Edmonton, one of the comments you made is that you were upset that you're missing out on the beer fest.
Yeah, it's a super
plug,
fun.
A plug to Valemount's Beer Fest. If you haven't been, it's fantastic.
Yeah, awesome.
Visit
Yeah.
Valemount.
Yeah, I always say that, the Valemount is like the Switzerland of British Columbia, just this little tight-knit community surrounded by these big, beautiful mountains, and it's a mountain biker's or just an outdoor enthusiast paradise, really. So plug to Valemount, you're right. Have you seen the actual, is there footage of the accident itself or anything that you've seen?
No, there was nothing. Yeah.
No, yeah, it was her third time hitting that jump that day, and like she said, she was just hitting it a little bit nose heavy, and yeah, the way we kind of reconstructed the accident is that she was not going to hit it this time around, and then kind of decided to do it last second, and just wasn't carrying enough speed and endoed, and did a perfect lawn dart. We have her helmet. There's a small amount of damage to it, but it's just right on the very top of your head. It's just a perfect lawn dart. So
you had the accident. You go to the hospital. You're going to go through the rehabilitation, learning how to breathe, and learning how to handle the chair. At that time, some of your friends got together. I know because I started getting phone calls right away from various people saying, we got to raise money for Chantelle and Warren. And I said, great, let's have a phone call. And Curtis Mays contacted me and said, we're going to put together a fundraiser, and went over with him all the things that I thought would help make a fundraiser more successful, fully expecting that you would raise a good solid $10,000 if they put it together right and timed it properly, created packages. We did it all. I was like, okay, now go roll this out, have everybody do it once. You got one crack at this. What happened?
Oh, it was incredible. Kurt did a mastermind of a job, and I remember we were just laying in the ICU and opened up the GoFundMe page, and there was $2,000 over the first night, and we were ecstatic.
Yeah.
Like, we can't believe people have donated this much already. And then within 24 hours, I think it was up to 40,000. And then it just escalated from there. And it far surpassed anything that we ever thought that, the community would give. But
We were quite resistant to doing it to begin with, to tell you the truth, and we're really glad that Curtis kind of talked us into the idea with push from a couple of other people, because we didn't know what we need, and it wasn't. I mean, I know you said that we were figuring out how to learn to breathe and rehab and everything, but we weren't at that point yet. We were still in the ICU, where the diagnosis was, you'll never sit upright, you'll never breathe again, you'll never eat.
yeah.
So that's the stage we were at. So when people were saying, we need to raise money for you, at that point you're like, for what? Like, we don't even know what we have here yet. So and I didn't just want to ask for money too. We're pretty independent people. It was very uncomfortable for us, and especially seeing that number climb. Like, we didn't like looking at comments. We didn't. It was, I don't know. We were very uncomfortable with the whole thing. But and when we did decide that we maybe needed some financial help, we wanted to be able to ask for something specific, like a wheelchair, or, But luckily, everyone around us advised us, like, no, just get this going right now. People want to help, and you're getting all these messages. Everyone wants to help, and there's only so many things you can do at that point. So I guess this was just kind of one way that everybody could help. And I think in 48 hours it was climbing over $60,000, and it blew our mind. And it came from so many different groups too. I mean, there was Prince George community as a whole, just did an amazing job, and then Valemount themselves really pitched in, and then the karate world was huge. That went very far. And
did it end up near 100 or something like that?
134,000.
I stopped looking at 100. I was like so blown away, because I mean, I've been involved in a lot of fundraisers, and that warmed my heart though. I was so happy. I mean, and first of all, hearing the humility from you guys saying we don't know if we want money, that's great. That's what people who are helping want to hear even more, because that just makes me want to pull up my checkbook and donate even more, because you want to help people who don't have an expectation but are just appreciative. So I know that's going to resonate with people, but people have to donate. When something like this happens, you have to do something. There's nothing I can do to fix you medically, but we know that there's going to be things that come up, and the one thing we can do is make that easier, so that you guys don't have that hurdle at least. And that's what I loved about that. That's what everybody donated for there. It gave them that little bit.
Also a testament to the wonderful communities that you're part of in your life. It probably made you reflect on that, and whether it be the Prince George community, the Valemount community, the northern community as a whole, the karate community, the mountain biking community, your workplace communities. In an already overwhelming situation that you're dealing with, you're now overwhelmed with this amazing fundraiser initiative that happened. Shout out to Curtis Mays. And it must have, what was it like just seeing all of these communities that you've been involved with in your life, see them kind of come together and show that support?
So humbling. Like, it just broke us down even more, and it's such a hard feeling to describe, really. I mean,
it was almost more overwhelming than the injury itself, to tell you the truth. I think
there's a couple times we cried, and that was one of them for sure.
Yeah, we're not big criers either.
Yeah, I know, you're a bunch of cowboys, but you dance to the Backstreet Boys. So we know there's a soft spot in there. When you take the cowboy
everybody at 1 a.m. dances to the Backstreet Boys when there's a keg involved.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose. So can we talk a little bit about, I mean, we can leave the money aside now, but that was just such a powerful thing for everybody who was involved, and I thought that was important. But can we talk about what your personal life looks like now? Like, you were into karate, you were into mountain biking, you were into jiu-jitsu, you guys were active. What have you done now to keep yourself going?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I think we're still figuring out. When we got back to Prince George, a month later, COVID happened. So we're not really sure exactly what the long-term look is, but it's really important for us to be outside. So we have a dog. We go for long walks in our new neighborhood, try and explore the trails. We off-road constantly, going places where my chair shouldn't be going. And my friends are great. They'll push me up or down any hill if I need to.
Her 450-pound chair, by the way.
Yes, I'm great exercise equipment. And yeah, like twice a week we go and train kids at the karate club. And that's really been helping with the breathing because I yell at them a lot. So it helps with the capacity.
And speaking about the karate club, I know that you were highly involved before the accident and just as involved now. And it sounds like you have some pretty outstanding future goals regarding karate.
Yeah, and we're pretty excited about that. So, yeah, you might have seen on the social media pages, but I'm trying to go in for coaching, hopefully at a national level is where we're headed. And be participating in some online courses. I started them before, and I definitely plan on finishing them. And then just locally at the club, just coaching the kids, being around the kids, teaching, and yeah.
Warren, are you still in karate too? Are you involved in that part of her life?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. I grew, actually my whole family grew up in the karate club, my brother before me, and so I've been there. It's the Nechaka Karate Club. I've been there since I was 6 or 7. So I kind of run the sport program there, and Chantelle and I both competed, and I competed at a high performance level on the BC team, and I had just retired like just before our accident. We were headed to Montreal for kind of one of my last fights for one of the Olympic K1A events. And yeah, I think we were supposed to go a week after Chantelle's accident, so we didn't end up going. But I was retired, but I think just kind of after her accident, we just wanted to get back into the club, get back to our students and be able to teach and figure out a new way for Chantelle to be able to do that. And then I don't even know when we decided, but I think we just kind of figured maybe I've got one more year in me. So I guess you're hearing it now first. The plan is for me to fight again at the Nationals with Chantelle as my ring coach.
Didn't you have 4 times at the Nationals or something like that? I was reading on your karate, but...
Yeah, as a senior athlete, I think I went to Nationals 4 times. And then I spent the last year as the captain of the BC team. And that was, yeah, really awesome. But our last year at Nationals together, it was kind of a disappointing year for us, and it just wasn't the way I wanted to leave it. And I've had awesome coaches behind me the whole time, but it's not even really a goal for myself to go back to Nationals. The goal is I want to go back with Chantelle as my ring coach. And yeah.
And what a story that is, that you're going back to fight at the national level with Chantelle in your corner, where it becomes more of a team effort. And when is the competition and where?
COVID.
Yeah.
I said it for you.
Yeah.
COVID.
Well, the world's a little confused right now. Karate for the first time is in the Olympics in Tokyo this year, for the first and apparently last time.
Yeah.
But so everything has to line up behind that for qualifications. But currently it is scheduled in July in Newfoundland.
Labrador, I think.
Yeah, so that's when it's scheduled. Whether or not it'll happen or not, we're still waiting to see. But
We're training like we're going.
we're training like we're going. Yeah, in a bunch of different ways. The qualifications to be able to ringside coach at Nationals she's got to do 9 different courses, and it's pretty hefty. So even and there'll be a lot of other hurdles like the travel. I mean, you can imagine when you're paralyzed below the neck and you've got a 450-pound chair, just traveling across the country is going to be as hard as the fight. So it's kind of one challenge that we're looping it all in one, and that's our, I guess, short-term goal.
I actually want to ask you something about persevering. So I have a friend who contacted me knowing that we were going to do this interview, and he has a sister who was also paralyzed, but still has use of her arms. The complaint was that she kind of just gave up when the accident occurred. She said, it takes me too long to get ready in the morning, and so by the time she gets up, it's too much effort. I'm just not going to work. And you've done the exact opposite. I'm going to assume, being a quadriplegic, that it takes more time than a paraplegic for you to get ready. Is there any give up in you? Oh, maybe I'll just stay home, or what? What makes you say, I'm going to still go?
Yeah, I mean, everything is a lot of work. I think everyone has those moments where you're like, it's easier to stay in bed, but honestly, like, even if I tried to do that, somebody would be kicking me out. Like, they wouldn't even let me. Not my friends, not Warren. So, there's constant check-ins. But I'm really grateful for my day, and I love going outside. And, if I've even got a dog, and if I don't feel like going out, well, the dog still needs to be walked. So it's just, I don't know. I haven't felt the give up yet. I haven't been allowed to feel like that.
Yeah.
I haven't been allowed to feel like that. That's just such a great response. And to anyone listening or watching this podcast, you're providing them with inspiration right now, and just like your friend's sister, right, Dave? And I also just want to recognize you, Warren, for the support system, because you guys are the epitome of a power couple. You guys are the personifications of strength and perseverance. And it's been 19 months since June 2019. And we did explain the accident in Valemount and that you're airlifted to Edmonton. But I would love for you guys to talk about just what happened in Edmonton and then how you ended up in Vancouver, and what your experiences were there in both provinces, just with the medical system, because you must have been working with a lot of amazing human beings, amazing, incredible people. So maybe we can talk about what happened in Edmonton and then what happened in Vancouver.
Sure, yeah. I'll breeze over some of the Edmonton stuff because it got a little bit dark. But basically I was given a very poor outlook, and was told that life is not going to get much better. You have the option to check out. You have time to make this decision. And no one wants to be in a state where you're not really sure what's going on, but you have to make a decision like that. So I just chose not to.
That you have the opportunity to check out is what you were told?
Yeah.
I would even borderline say you were almost encouraged to give up on this kind of thing. What?
Yeah, dark time, and I couldn't talk. I was ventilated through the mouth, so I did everything by blinking. My family gave me a letter sheet, and we learned a system of blinking out letters. And
blink when we got down the alphabet to one side, and then go across, and we'd spell things out, and we just had to kind of come up with a system to communicate.
But yeah, and then shortly after that, they chose to do a tracheostomy on me, which would at least allow me to, mouth words. And I think as soon as we did that, it was kind of like the first bright light of, all right, we can communicate, we can start working through this and understanding this. And I have such a huge amount of respect and love for nurses now. Like, just incredible. Like, I always knew their job was hard, but like without my family was hugely supportive, but they were amazing. They were the ones telling me, don't listen to the doctors. They have no idea. Just keep trying, and we know these cases where it works, and blah, blah, blah. And they would take the time to be so special and kind to me, which was huge. And so I was in the Edmonton ICU for 43 days, and they keep you there because no one else can take you when you're ventilated. There's no training, no equipment. And we were trying to fly me to Vancouver, but Warren knows more about that side.
Yeah.
He was dealing with all the crazy paperwork on the side.
So if you're in BC and you need to be medevaced somewhere, that's fine. It's all covered by MSP. But if you get medevaced to Edmonton and you need to return to rehab in Vancouver, you're out of province, it's not covered, even though they sent you there to begin with. Insurance, which we had all the insurance in the world, we're insurance people, decided we weren't quite far enough from home that we were traveling. We were 400 kilometers away instead of, I think, 500 it was supposed to be, so our insurance wouldn't kick in. So you're facing I think we figured a $50,000 Learjet ride just to get back to your home province so you can
Very bougie.
Very bougie, yeah. Because at this point she's fully ventilated. She can't speak. They've moved the ventilator from in her mouth to her throat now, so at least she can kind of, mouth words, and you get really good at lip reading. But long story short, and I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but the hospital found funds to basically fly us there. And I don't know whose budget that came out of, but I'm eternally grateful to them. And they flew us to Vancouver.
It was right before my birthday. I want to have like one happy memory here. Warren always gives me birthday week, and it was that time, and the nurses had brought me cake, and everyone was being special, and Warren had arranged for this what do you call it, virtual?
Oh yeah, we had a VR guy.
A VR guy. You brought in a
about that.
VR guy to the ICU to set up like a deep sea dive VR experience for me in the ICU, and just I don't know how to describe how special that was, but
that was kind of the first sign that like, oh, there's
we
things you
still
can do.
stuff.
You
We had
know,
no
so-
idea. Like that was one thing too. I wanted to YouTube, like, what do people with quadriplegia look like? What does their lives look like, and are they happy and content? So I'd reached out right away within 1 week of my injury, try and find someone who was quadriplegic to come in and talk to me. And that was kind of a weird experience. They sent in a very emotional fellow who started crying as soon as he saw me. So like, all right, we're not going to talk to this guy. But I was consoling him in the end. They're like, what is this? Yeah, it was ridiculous. So then I reached out to the spinal cord injury support BC group in Vancouver and got to talk with a lady, and she had pink hair and great fashion, and she told me her story, and she was just super rad. And I'm like, all right, like there's a group out there and this is possible. And I remember thinking, like, as long as I refused to believe I couldn't breathe, and that was my biggest thing. And I thought, as long as I can find a way to breathe, all of this can be possible. Everything is very doable. So that was my biggest goal.
And the way they figure out if you can breathe is they pull you off and kind of see what happens.
Yeah.
And so they figured that there's zero chance that you're going to be able to breathe, but you might as well try. So they just pull out of the ventilator, and then they just say, breathe, 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 breathe. And you just kind of, and I think when you haven't done it in a little while, I guess, in 43 days, I don't know why it didn't work, but it didn't.
I don't know.
And
Lost the muscle tone, or the nerves come back a bit. But you have to relearn. So once I was in Vancouver, they had a better, they call it weaning process. And at first they didn't want to try it. They wouldn't let me. They said, no, it's not worth it. And every doctor told me, no, it's not worth it. But I found one respiratory technician that was weak enough that I bullied him into
we really
not
bullied him.
We really bullied him. I feel bad, but I owe it all to him, really. And he let me stay off the ventilator, and I made it 30 seconds.
No, we were in Edmonton. We had made it to about a minute.
No.
Yeah, and then once we got into Vancouver, you would crash. Her saturation levels would drop at about the 1.5-minute level, and I don't know. That's kind of when it came back to our athletic backgrounds. Like, anyone who goes for a run, what's the hardest part of that run? It's that first 5 minutes until you get that second wind, right? So as soon as her saturation level dropped below 90, they'd plug her back in, and it was almost, we almost just said, just let her try longer. And everyone's like, no, we can't, it's too dangerous, kind of thing. And this guy, we just tore into him, like, let us try. And then sure enough, at about the 2-minute mark, her saturations came back up, and then that was it right there. At that point, it was like, okay, we got this, we're in charge now, and we're just going to keep pushing this. And then just, I mean, if you go back and look through Facebook, it's just 8 minutes today, 9 minutes tomorrow, and then we hit that 1 hour mark, and it just went from there.
But we really approached it from an athletic background. Like, we knew it was cardio, and I hate cardio. Like, I hate it. So it was kind of ironic that now I had to do it all the time. But, Warren kept charts, and we graphed it, and we took rest days, and we approached it exactly like exercise. And I think it's that mental toughness that helped a lot.
I notice your finger moving.
Oh, I can move. Yeah, I have some movement on my fingers.
We call
no way.
that the fancy
Yeah.
finger.
The fancy finger.
Yeah.
I
So,
use it for gaming.
so you actually were persevering so robustly that it was you calling the shots. It was you not listening to this advice and saying, no, we have to try. We have to at least attempt it and do it this way and look at the ramifications of that.
Yeah, like honestly, if we listened, my life would be so much different if we hadn't just pushed through. And it was hard, and it was, when you're training on something where you can't breathe, like it is the hardest thing I've ever done. And nothing compares to it that I think I'll be through again. But having a coach and having someone supportive with me as well, like it's just, we had to say no to doctors all the time. And that's another thing. Like I have friends going through situations right now, and I always tell them, like, you know yourself, you know what you're capable of. Don't listen to everything you're told necessarily, because I had so much respect for the first doctor that told me that they didn't know. They didn't know if it was possible. Like,
yeah,
great.
we were blown away at how
Thank
many
you.
people just said, like, this is how it's going to be. And then we do our own research, like, I'm not entirely sure. And the first doctor we trusted said, I don't know, we just have to wait and see. And we're like,
Yeah.
There's
You're on our
something
team.
to this, I actually had discussed with Scott about doing an episode on, in January of last year, I got diagnosed with a tumor. But it took me going back to the hospital 12 times, being sent home saying you have migraines now. I'm like, how do you just get migraines at 44? I went back 12 days in a row until on the 12th day I just refused to leave the hospital. I said, until you give me a scan, I'm a resident of the hospital now.
Yeah.
Like there's something wrong with my head. I just refused to leave. And they got so irritated, they finally said, fine, we'll give you one. That's how I got diagnosed. Not because anybody said, oh, I know what we should do next. It was me saying I refused. And I only went to the hospital and stayed there because Tanner Woodman messaged me on Facebook when he saw what I was going through, and he said, I had a stroke, but I went to the hospital and they said, you've got migraines now. And he said he demanded to get an MRI and then discovered he had a stroke. Again, he went through the same thing where he just refused to accept anybody else's narrative about what he was going through. He knew what he was going through. He knew what was wrong. I knew what was wrong. I spoke for myself. You knew what was wrong. You knew what you could do. You spoke for yourself. And the message here, we don't even need to do that whole episode of the podcast now. It's, you know what's happening inside of you. You are your own best activist.
And your perseverance. I mean, one of my heroes is Terry Fox, and one of his one of my favorite quotes and his most famous is, anything is possible if you try. And through your perseverance against advice or counsel that you may have received, you went with it, you tried, and look at the positive results. You're living proof of the positive results of what happened because you believed in yourself and you tried.
So we're probably close to wrapping up. I don't know if you have any specific questions left, but what I do want to ask you guys is, obviously you've had an outpouring of support, and a lot of people have helped you. What are your goals, things you want to accomplish over the next years, and is there any causes or anything that people can assist you in, either helping you or helping something you want to help?
That's a big question.
Yeah, it's been a little bit tricky because, like I said, we were in the hospital for 8 or 9 months or something straight, and then we got out, and then COVID hit, so our lives haven't really been normalized. But I guess kind of circling back to Terry Fox's quote, and I just want to say one thing for your friend that's paralyzed, that's having motivation or lack thereof. It's I guess we try to approach everything of, I want to do this, so how? Instead of going like, I can't do this, it's like you just choose something. I want to be able to do this, and then we just figure out a way. And one of my coaches kind of said, like, it takes a village. And like I said, up until this, we were very independent people, and everybody wants to help. I mean, you get so much value from being able to help somebody like Chantelle, and I think part of that is because this could have happened to any one of us, right? Like half the town of Prince George is mountain biking, because mountain biking is the best thing that there is, let's face it. And it wasn't like an incredible accident. It could have been any single person.
It could have been you. These roles could have been reversed.
It should have been. I do way stupider stuff with my bike than she does, right? And so I think if if you're in a situation like that and you just need help, and you say, I want to be able to do this, and you tell a few people around you, they'll help you, and you'll be able to do it. There's always a way, right? So I guess that's kind of how I approach that. But in terms of future goals, I mean, right now we're really focused on trying to get all the coaching certification and get me back to a competitive level to go back to nationals. But the other really fun one that we're working with right now is to get Chantelle back on a mountain bike. So yeah, I mean, C1, you can't break anything higher than that, so anything below that's fine, right?
Just send it.
I forget the gentleman's name. My friend Josh Staub, he's the president of the PG
Yeah.
Cycling Club. Great human being, one of my favorites. And he recommended a gentleman for this podcast, Stacy. His last name escapes me, but he was just on Whistler Blackcomb at the bike park last summer, and he created a bike as a paraplegic that he was able to use in the bike park, and it just looked like absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, so we've been talking actively with a company called Bowhead Corp, and they're actually originated out of Calgary, and they've got a really awesome three-wheeled mountain bike that's currently being used by paraplegics and low-level quadriplegics. So, but they figure that probably by this summer they'll have something with chin controls that Chantelle will be able to use, and we're really excited about that.
That'll be out of control.
Yeah.
That'll be great.
Just when you mentioned that, Warren, I saw your eyes light up, Chantelle. It was really great to see. I just want to take a step back and talk about your experience in Vancouver, because you met a very inspirational Canadian hero during your time in Vancouver, Rick Hansen. Can you tell us about that experience?
Well, first, she didn't get to meet him because she was
No.
tied up with some hospital stuff, and he came rolling in to meet her, and I definitely
Warren
hijacked
just,
him.
yeah.
I'm a
completely
big
hijacked
Rick
him.
Hansen fan. I don't know where, sir, but ever since a kid, I thought he was awesome. I think it might have been that big sign that was always outside of Williams Lake that you drive through, just home of Rick Hansen kind of thing. And
Yeah.
and then I ended up meeting and becoming good friends with his niece in university, and
Alexis.
Alexis,
Yeah, shout out to Alexis Moore, great person.
So Uncle Rick is how I always heard him get it referred to. So yeah, he'd come in through GF Strong at request and meet anybody that had kind of a recent injury, and the guy just knows what to say. I don't even remember exactly what
He had such a magical speech, and I was just enthralled. I can't tell you what it was about. But one thing that kind of stuck, I don't remember specifically how he said it, but was talking about independence. And losing your independence, or what you think of as your independence, is a really hard aspect of this injury. But you gain it back through other people, but not in a way of, being a burden. I think that the willingness to accept help and to work with people kind of brings back your independence, and then you can accomplish the things you want to accomplish. And his speech was kind of around that, and it has really stood with me, and it's brought me, there's some dark moments, and it's definitely come back at those times.
For
And
you to
he's great.
remember Rick's exact words, and I know you just read his book, Man in Motion, which is a
Yeah.
fantastic read, and he was also received an honorary doctorate degree from the University of Northern British Columbia in 2008. And if you have you read his book, Man in Motion?
No, actually.
No.
That will change your life.
Yeah.
Tell us about it, Dave, because you just read it.
I read it last week. Scott challenged me to read that one, and first of all, I had no idea he was such. The only way to say it is shit disturber as a kid. Like, he was just a little hellion. Like, he was full of energy and full of life and hunting and fishing, and like his passions. He was a cowboy, like out of Williams Lake, and couldn't control him, couldn't hold him down. It was a fascinating story. I had no idea. He was my childhood hero, along with Terry Fox. Watching, I'm old enough that I watched Rick Hansen and remember when he was wheeling around the world. It was about when he got to China, when it was all over the new.
Yeah, with those killer delts.
Yeah.
Oh,
And just
he's ripped.
discussing the food. And all I remember is the news interviews talked a lot about the food that they had to eat and the alcohol, and he discusses it all in his book, and you get the backstory, and it was a hugely inspirational story. And probably starting to read his book is what made us go, oh, we got somebody in Prince George who's very much from what we can see, or what I can see modeling that level of perseverance.
I absolutely agree. There are some parallel and very, very similar characteristics between Rick Hansen and yourself, Chantelle, in terms of strength and resiliency and perseverance, and just your ability to uplift others with your story and your positive attitude. That's powerful, powerful stuff.
Hopefully we're reading your book, Woman in Motion,
Oh yeah.
in the future.
Post-COVID.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So we talked about meeting Rick in Vancouver, but we didn't really get into any of the other experiences there. There anything that stands out during your time in Vancouver that was highly remarkable, or good memories? Maybe think of some good things that happened during your time there.
You know, we actually had a lot of fun in Vancouver. We busted out of rehab so fast that we got chased down and told we're not allowed to leave.
Yeah, we got in trouble on day one. Yeah.
Yeah, they pegged us already for some, like you said, some shit disturbers. But yeah, we tried to get out all the time, and every weekend I think we traveled to different breweries. We were trying to hit as many as we could, and you know, the place gets a lot of donations for tickets, so we saw a couple Canucks games, which we'd never seen before.
Sat in Rick Hansen seats, actually.
Sat in Rick Hansen.
No big deal. Yeah.
You know, soccer game and something
Lions
else. So
game, shout out.
yeah, they got some fun donations, so we just always try to get out and have fun and like be, you know, travel and tourist and not just be a patient on the weekends.
We spent a month in the spinal cord unit at VGH, waiting for your spot to get into rehab at a facility called GF Strong, which is a magical place. That's where they're like, okay, this is what you've got, and this is how you're gonna live now. And so that's where just kind of everything started for us, I suppose. And that was the first time that Chantelle had been put into a wheelchair with a ventilator that was on the back of it, so she could, you know, at that point, I had to drive around for her because she didn't know how to drive it. They hadn't trained her up yet. And so we went downstairs and went around, then outside, and one of the nurses came by and waved at us and then stopped, turned around. You guys can't be off the floor up there. Like, you're not vent trained. And so for me, I guess that was one of the goals that I wanted to get trained with everything that I could as fast as humanly possible so we could get out of the hospital. And it normally takes, I don't know what they say, like a couple months or something like that, but we just hit it hard, and within 2 days they said, okay, I think you'll be able to keep her alive-ish. And we went down this ish. Yeah. Well, you know, at that point it's like everything's ish. Yeah. So
it's scary going out, but we went out for a coffee and just sat in a cafe.
We went out for a coffee, like down the street, and sat in a coffee shop.
It was amazing. And
alarms were going off on her vent everywhere. Everything was going wrong. But
another call out to my friends too. Like, even I had my birthday, 29th birthday in the ICU, and a bunch of our friends from Vancouver showed up, and they snuck in a bottle of tequila and helped me do a tequila shot in the ICU, and we had it ventilated.
Oh my Lord.
Doctors came in and were like, "Do you know what you're doing?"
Yeah.
I don't think everyone's been.
Like, yeah, we know what we're doing.
Yeah, we
We've got a pretty good idea. Yeah.
Does it look like we make good decisions? Come on.
Yeah. No, we had a lot of fun, and got on the SkyTrain as soon as we could. It was very important to us to get out as quick as we could, because when we started reading about other people in similar circumstances, is the hardest part for most people was the anxiety. Like, they would get out of the hospital and then they just were so anxious they couldn't go out into public for years. So for us, the goal was, well, let's just rip off that Band-Aid and go into public like now.
And get on a podcast.
And
let everybody in Prince George watch it.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
You said there were no cameras.
Yeah.
And I want to compliment your social media posts too, because they were so positive and just fueled with good energy when you're ripping around by Science World and False Creek on the boardwalk, and you're just looking like you're having so much fun. And Warren, you mentioned that with the chair, it was something that you were operating at first, but can you tell us how you operate your chair, Chantelle, and how long it took for you to actually learn how to utilize it, because it's quite advanced from what I understand.
Also a really good story.
Yeah, so they always start you out on like a training chair, and it actually has this technology called a sip and puff, and it's a big straw that comes around, and you either sip or puff into it to go forward or turn.
So like blow or inhale? Or?
Exactly, yeah. It's incredibly difficult. And yeah, you the difference between a sip and a puff, like you do driving lessons around cones, and you just like I just would madly accelerate by accident, because if you blow too hard, increase your speed, but a little puff would be like a turn. So I was just slamming into walls, left, right, and center.
Yeah,
but then it was so funny to me, like you'd start laughing, and then you can't control the chair, and then next thing you know, you're barreling through some poor soul's room that
named Tori,
Yeah.
the bodybuilder, just broke his back. So we met Tori, he's a cool guy,
Yeah,
by
like,
crashing
hey.
into his room.
Yeah. Poor little guy was taking a nap.
Literally took out the garbage can, pushed it through his door
Yeah.
into his room.
So
He's probably told that story to so many other people, and just these crazy people from Prince George come right through my room.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's a great way to meet people. But then I settled on the technology I use right now, because it's a little bit more reliable. Because if you lose that straw, you're kind of hooped. You're going into a ditch or whatever. And the technology I use now is called a head array, and it's motion sensor or proximity sensor around my head. So I steer it just by like moving my head ever so slightly, and it works great.
I guess can't
And it's
see now.
Yeah, you can't see right now, but it's reliable
Yeah,
enough
just
that
bring it up for a
yeah.
second so we
Yep.
can. And so, just like any other skill, like this, you have to evolve it and work on it every day to get better. And so, have you found yourself now just as an expert with it and can use it really well, or there's still hiccups every now and then?
There's still hiccups.
She wasn't the best
Yeah.
driver before this, to tell you
I know.
the truth. But
It's definitely easier. It's a lot more intuitive to drive around, but I do still take things out. Sometimes on purpose if I'm just having fun. But
Sorry
yeah.
about your toe there, Warren.
yeah, oh yeah, exactly.
With
Yeah,
a
there's lot of-
dog. There's a lot
I've
of
ran
holes in
over
my
my
wall.
dog like 3 times, and they're so forgiving.
Yeah, and you've also
Yeah.
mentioned, I mean, we have to be so grateful for technology in a lot of different ways, but you also mentioned Apple and different Apple products. Can you talk about those?
Yeah. No, it's amazing. Like, I think I was unable to text or use my phone for the longest time, and that's pretty isolating. And then I think it was in October, Apple just put out voice control. And they didn't even announce it or release it, and somehow an occupational therapist found out about it, ran up and told me, and I literally can do everything with my voice now on my phone or on a tablet. So I can read books now, I can surf the internet, I can interact. It's great. The technology, even the last 10 years, is, I guess, advanced so much, and I'm still hearing about these other methods for controlling chairs. So I have a lot of hope for, what the situation will
Do you
be
know how to
like.
read?
Sorry?
You also look
You're
at
going to read Rick Hanson's book, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I will.
Well, if you think about it, because there's a lot of things you don't really even realize. Like, how do you read a book if you're paralyzed below the
Yeah.
neck? Like, in bed. I mean, a computer, she uses little mouth joists as a mouse. But if you're in bed and you want to read before bed, how do you do that? And until October, when Apple just put out this free update that's on every single one of your phones, you just don't know it's there. You just click on the little accessibility thing. Then all of a sudden, we just put a little iPad on a stand in front of her, and she just goes swipe left, and flips the pages. And
Another cool one is 3D printers. You can print little switches or buttons, and Xbox put out an accessibility, like a game playing panel. So you just hook up all these little buttons. So that's what I can do with my little fingers or up to my head, and I can play a basic video game. So
amazing.
Yeah.
And just think about all the technology that exists now for you to take advantage of, and think about the future and the rapid technology developments that are still going to start coming your way that you're going to be able to benefit from. That's exciting.
Oh, yeah, I'm
smart home
stoked.
devices. I mean, when was the last, Google Homes showed up, 5 years ago?
Yeah.
Maybe?
Yeah. There is lots of potential for so many things to happen in the future, and that's
I
awesome.
mean, that's what runs our household, all the lights for everything, right? So,
Yeah.
it's big things to come in terms of technology, we're hoping.
I mean, here we are just 20 minutes ago on this podcast talking about how you're excited to get back on a mountain bike, and technology is going to help make that happen. Absolutely. Do you listen to a lot of audiobooks, a lot of podcasts?
we do listen to podcasts. I use them when I'm driving all the time, but We like Joe Rogan.
Yeah, shout out to Joe Rogan, future guest, right? He's not Canadian, so we'll have to find somebody else. But with like just different audiobook apps as well, they're so brilliant. Just when you're in your workday, to have any book imaginable as an audiobook these days, just to have it on in the background or before you're going to bed, or even when you're just driving to work or around, it's such a benefit to have. And again, I think we're probably getting close to the end of this podcast, and you've been such special guests for Dave and me to have here, and Andrew as well, who's a huge part of our team. And what I would love to do is just give the floor to you, and I think Dave will agree. And you've been through a lot, and I mean, when it was 19 months ago, June 2019, you can compare yourself to who you were then and who you are now, and all the knowledge that you have now just from the experience you've been through. And I'm hoping that you can take as much time as you want just to maybe give some shout outs or to thank some people along the journey that were really instrumental in helping. And you take your time, but maybe just say thank you to a few people that come to mind.
Yeah, no, that's another big question. Huge shout outs, obviously, to our community. I can't thank that enough. We're PG lifers now for sure. Incredible group of friends. One fellow we talked about before this podcast that I want to throw a note out to would be Walt. He was down in my rehab center.
So Walt's the cliff notes on Walt, the quad father, is he has a very similar level injury to Chantelle, and he just floats around dropping wisdom on everybody at the rehab center. And he's a Dawson Creek boy who was injured at a very young age and was ventilated before there were ventilators that were portable. So he's got a lot of good stories. I mean, Chantelle made it through this journey when there was technology available, but he made it through that journey when there wasn't technology available. And just the nature of the fellow was so calm and told his story to us in a way that kind of talks you off the ledge and then gets you to a point where you're like, okay, if that guy can do it, then we can definitely do it. But I think one of the biggest things when it came to support and the people that we're grateful for is they were all community groups that we were very involved with. And I think PG is a very volunteer town, and everybody's trying to help out in some respect. I think that's just kind of a northern thing. If you live in the north, I think you're just more awesome than most, to tell you the truth. But just videos on her birthday of thousands of people at a karate tournament singing happy birthday to Chantelle that they sent to the mountain biking community, to Valemount. The mountain biking group in Valemount was sending us care packages.
Cadet group. Yeah,
the air cadets who I fly with, they held their own fundraisers. Her work people held their fundraisers. Dave, you were taking time to tell Curtis how to, get a fundraising effort going, and all that stuff is, it makes it, you all of a sudden need to somehow pay these people back, and obviously you can't pay back $140,000, but I think the way that you can, is Chantelle isn't a burden to society anymore. I mean, she's working, and hopefully she's an inspiration to some people. And I mean, she doesn't think that way at all, but I think she is. And I think for a lot of people, just seeing her attitude through that, it kind of makes you think a little bit better of your day,
Yep, 120%. Whether you want to think that way or not, you can't help but hear what you guys have said and not think, I gotta man up.
Yeah, so Chantelle for Governor General.
Yeah.
Okay.
Too soon.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys, for being here and for sharing your story.
Yeah.
No,
and
thank
when
you.
when we get out of this COVID mess, come say hi when we're rolling down the trails for sure.
And with your permission, because we know that there will be some large expenses coming up with your ambitious goals with karate, with nationals, and as well as the coaching certification. So with your permission, we would like to include a link to the GoFundMe if people still can donate or help you out, because you two are incredible people in this community who we want to see achieve their goals, and Dave will agree where the community wants to help. So if with your permission, we can share that, and it's just been an honor for us to really have you both here today. Thank you.
Yeah, and the last group I'd like to mention too, if people are slinging around some COVID money, is the Spinal Cord Injury Group BC. They were incredible for us. I mean, they provided, like Chantelle was saying, that early mentorship of that lady who was a similar quad, and they constantly check in on us, and they've become great friends that when we need help, we call them up and they kind of help us through things. So shout out to those guys.
Yeah.